Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in your time zone. This is DJ K Wise of the Real 360 show. We're going to jump in early because we got some stuff that's really going on, and we want to make sure everybody is plugged in. I'm going to bring on my co host with the most so we can get right on to this explosive episode of the Real 360. Peace and blessings to one and all. Josh Jamel Allah, Mr. PhD, you on, my brother. Peace.
Peace, peace, peace to all our followers, listeners, and subscribers. Make sure that you're liking and subscribing on that YouTube channel. But today we have a very impactful and a very meaningful show. We have the councilwoman for Philadelphia, Miss Jamie Gunther, on our show today, and she will be discussing things that she's looking to accomplish while being a councilwoman in the great city of Philadelphia. So, Kay, could you bring her on?
Absolutely. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. It's a pleasure to have you on our show today. We've been looking forward to it. I think I have been in correspondence with your assistant, Miss Aliyah Muhammad.
Yes.
And I have to give it to her. She's definitely about her business.
Yes, she is.
She's definitely about her business, and I appreciate her professionalism. I just want to say that off the
I'll let her know.
Beginning. But for all our followers and listeners, could you just introduce yourself to them and let them know what council you're a councilwoman and what district you're in?
My name is Councilmember Jamie Gaudier. I am a council person in my first term in Philadelphia, PA. I am a district council member, so that means I represent a geography of about 160,000 people in the city of Philadelphia, and I represent large parts of West Philly and Southwest Philly in particular.
Okay. Now, what inspired you to get into politics?
I think watching my father, my father is a lawyer, but my father is probably more of an activist than a lawyer. And I watched him from an early age use his law degree not to enrich himself, but to really help people in our community. My dad, fought and represented Black activists, and he has always been big on fighting for the rights of Black people to have quality education in Philly. And he ran for district attorney twice on a platform of ending mass incarceration and having the DA really be in the community. So I wanted to have a career that was about my community as well. For me, that looked like becoming an urban planner and helping people in neighborhoods to shape the places where they live and turn their neighborhoods into places where they could thrive. And so I became an urban planner, graduated grad school in 2004, and I worked in the nonprofit sector for a very long time, working on housing initiatives, working to better public spaces, working to help local small businesses. And I felt like council was a place where I can have a bigger impact on creating equitable neighborhoods. So that's what really made me want to run in 2019.
Now, how long is your term as a councilwoman?
We have 4-year terms. So it's crazy to believe because it feels like I just got here yesterday. I started in January of 2020 and then the entire world shut down. And, we've been going through the pandemic ever since. So it's crazy to believe, but I'm up for re-election again. So my primary is May of 23. And in Philly, most folks are Democrats. So the primary is kind of the big deal, right? If you win the primary, you're probably going to win the general as a Democrat. So, I've been in office for 3 years now. I'm headed towards, re-election and looking forward to it and kind of looking back on the things that I've accomplished in this time and looking forward to the things that I want to accomplish in my next term.
Okay. Now, can you speak to the fact that voting in your local government, how important is that? Because, a lot of times people just wait until the presidential election to want to vote. How important is it for the community to get out and vote for their local elections?
It's so important. And I wish that that was something that we taught more in school and that people really understood how their local government works. It's voting in your local elections is so important to the things that you see in your day-to-day life, right? Whether it be, having affordable housing in the city, having streets that are pleasant to drive on and safe to drive on, having your trash picked up on time, having, good recreation spaces for young people, all of that stuff and more. And so many things connected to your day-to-day experience as a citizen is tied to a local election. So I think it's imperative that people vote for their council person, for their mayor, for other local offices. And it's also imperative that people understand what your local representatives can do, what we have the power to do and what you should be pushing us to do, and what we don't control, right? And other people in government may control. So it's important to have an understanding of how local government works, and it's important to participate in local government in order to bring about the changes that you may want to see in your city or locality.
Now, do the council have a effect on the education system of our youth, as far as the funding and programming and things like that?
To some degree, it's a little complicated in Philadelphia. One, we're the only, and this is like crazy. This might be crazy to think about. We're the only locality in the state of Pennsylvania that does not have an elected school board.
Okay.
We have an appointed school board. Years ago, that school board was appointed by the state, which was a huge problem for us. The state doesn't really the state as a whole doesn't really understand the problems of Philadelphia. The state is weighted down by Republicans who I feel like don't have a feel for the heart of our city and the support that our kids need. And so, it didn't really work to have the state control the school district. A few years ago, the mayor took control of the school district. So now we have a local school board. The mayor appoints the people to the school board, and city council has the opportunity to confirm those people to the school board. And the city does put some money into the school district in order to fund the school district, but a lot of the money still comes from the state. And so we have some influence because we have the ability to confirm people to the board. And we also have to vote on, money going to the school district's budget. But the mayor has more control than city council over the school board and the operations of the school district.
Okay. The reason I was asking, because a lot of times people are trying to figure out how the money is being delegated through the school system and after school programs to help the youth in the community. When growing up in urban areas, we look at the education system, and everybody always say that the education system a lot of times in the urban area is subpar, and it's because of funding. So it's more so like, if we're able to speak or reach out to our council member or the mayor or someone in that office, then we can make a change. But also to be able to vote for an individual who has our best interest at heart.
Absolutely. And so the mayor and council have, some influence over the funding that goes to the school district. And also the mayor and the council can use, the bully pulpit that we have to advocate on these issues. But a great amount of that responsibility is also still held at the state. And so we have to join together to lobby the state. Local officials have to join together to lobby the state as well for adequate funding. And that's a fight that Philadelphia has been undertaking for quite some time, getting fair funding from the state for the school district.
Okay. My co-host has a question for you now.
Yes. Good morning, Councilwoman.
Good morning.
How much in depth are you involved or the council itself in the housing project areas in Philly, because certain areas that I know, I got family members and friends that I used to go and visit, especially Allegheny and Lehigh, where I looked at the housing areas, and it kind of reminds me back home in Brooklyn, where there's a lot of housings that are empty and are condemned that could be reconstructed and to help build up the community. And so how important is it with council that y'all are involved in that?
Yeah, so council plays a role in that for sure. One, council has to approve the mayor's budget in order for the mayor to spend any money. So that's one of the biggest power that council has, right? So one of the things that we can do is to negotiate for the amount of funding that we think should go towards housing efforts as we're negotiating that budget with the mayor. District council people also have a lot of influence over zoning and land use, as well as the disposition of city-owned land for various projects. And so within a council member's district, they can have an influence over, to some degree, over what happens with housing. Housing happens to be one of my core areas. I'm from the district that I represent. And one reason that I ran is because a lot of the neighborhoods that in my district are gentrifying, and Black working class folks that have lived in these neighborhoods for a very long time are getting displaced because they can't afford the housing. So a big part of my platform has been about making sure that neighborhoods of choice, neighborhoods with transit and parks and schools and grocery stores are open to everyone, not just, kind of gated off for wealthy white people, but places where everybody can live, because everybody wants to live in a neighborhood of choice. So that was like a big part of my platform. Last year, I was able to pass a law that mandates that affordable housing has to be built in any large development, whether it's rental or home ownership in my district. And I did that because we weren't seeing the private market deliver any housing that community members can afford. So that's an issue that I fight on quite frequently, and it's an area that I pay attention to a lot. And so, because I'm really passionate about that, I'm able to make some strides, I've been able to make some strides in that work, and that holds true for district council members across the city. I don't represent the area that you talked about, but I know, I believe the council member up there just resigned to run for mayor, but I know she also focused on housing too.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Also, Councilwoman, there are reentry programs that are in your district for individuals. What are some of the things that they're can look forward to when they're coming home, trying to re-enter to the system, to the community, and how can they become better productive citizens?
So re-entry programs are mostly concentrated within the mayor's administration. But I know that there are efforts to help people find housing. There are efforts to help people connect to jobs, and I think that's really meaningful to have people, come back into our communities and be able to live with dignity and lead, lives that they feel are productive and contributing to, the city. I actually do think this is an area where we need to do more and grow stronger. I think we need to have even more supports and resources for people who are re-entering our communities, because if we don't, it just leads to, further destabilization of the community. If people can't come back and have the ability to support themselves, if people come back and they can't get into housing, it leads too many people back to some of the things that got them incarcerated in the first place. So this is actually an area that I'm hoping that the city will do better on. And I also think that if we do better to help folks re-entering our communities, we probably will also be making more headway with the gun violence epidemic as well.
Yes, and I wanted to speak toward that. There was a event, I think was a couple of weeks ago, about the gun violence that was done there in Philadelphia. I don't know for an actual, was it in your district, but I know that y'all starting to be very proactive when it comes down to stop the violence. And I salute y'all for that because there's a lot of our youth that are being caught up in unnecessary gun violence and things of that nature. What is some of that part of your platform as well?
Sure. And we are doing a number of, great things to alleviate gun violence. I think, though, that we have to be doing much more. And the pushing the city to do much more part has been a major part of my platform. When I started in January of 2020, and then, we enter March and we're into the pandemic, it was striking to me, and it was immediately recognizable to me that not only were we facing a pandemic as it related to COVID in the neighborhoods that I represent, but gun violence was just shooting up. Right at the moment that our communities were cut off from all of the resources that they had been previously connected to, that's when we started seeing gun violence go through the roof. And I would visit some of the sites in my district where gun violence was happening, and you know it seems such an injustice to me that when I talked to people, they had no idea what the city was doing to make this better, where they could turn, how they could get connected to resources, what the plan was. And so at that time, I began pushing the mayor to declare a citywide emergency, so that the city would be addressing gun violence in the same way we were addressing COVID. Right. We did a great job standing up an emergency response to COVID. With through the pandemic, you saw the mayor or the health commissioner on the TV every day talking about case counts and how people can keep themselves safe. You saw all the city agencies working together and supporting each other to bring resources to neighborhoods. There was a huge fundraising effort for programs that can help people with virtual schooling and different things to help families weather the pandemic. That's the same type of all hands on deck effort that I think we need with the gun violence that's taking, in particular, so many Black and brown youth in our city. And so I've been pushing the city for a while to have a more urgent public health response that really directs, much needed resources to the people in the neighborhoods that are struggling right now. And so it's been a big part of my platform, both working with the agencies, whether it be, the Commerce Department and trying to get more jobs programs into neighborhoods, or whether it be Parks and Recreation, trying to have rec centers open for as many hours of the day as possible to have safe spaces, or whether it be ramping up trauma services so that we're helping people in their time of need, pushing for violence interruption on the ground. I've been a big champion for all of those things throughout my time in council, and I continue to work on that every day because we have to in order to get out of this crisis that we're in.
Also, pardon me. Also, working with the council, I think y'all work with the commissioner of the police department or with the police. And how have working with the police helped them be more sensitive to the community that they're supposed to serve?
I think it's been, certainly council members work with the police and represent the perspectives of our community members to the police. But I also think it's been really important for the public and for community members to say, to talk to the police and tell them how they want policing to work in our city, and how they don't want policing to work in our city. And so one major, aspect of that, I think, were the uprisings that happened after George Floyd. So there were uprisings in my district, as they were in many parts of the city and across the country, where people came out and said, this doesn't work for us, right? We want, to feel safe, and we don't want to feel like police are out to harm us, right? And so I think the uprisings actually started a lot of conversations about policing in Philadelphia, and also brought to the table some unpleasant aspects of policing in Black communities that have happened in Philadelphia's past. And in addition to the uprisings that happened after George Floyd in May of June of 2020, one of my constituents, Walter Wallace Jr., was shot and killed by police in October of 2020. He was experiencing a mental health crisis. Police arrived on the scene, and within 40 seconds of that interaction, he was shot and killed. And so there were a second set of uprisings connected to that police shooting. And so I think people raising their voices has actually been very important to moving this conversation and pushing for change in Philadelphia. And one aspect of that I'll give you is, after Walter Wallace Jr. was shot and killed, the city of Philadelphia stood up mobile crisis units that can respond to mental health crises. And these mobile crisis units don't have a police presence because when somebody is having a mental health crisis, they don't necessarily need to be approached by an armed police officer. They need help from a clinician and from somebody who's trained to deal with that kind of conversation. So I think council has absolutely pushed this conversation through the means that we have, whether that be hearings or through not putting money into the police budget in 2020, just to show that we wanted to fund the other aspects of services and resources that people need in neighborhoods beyond police. But I think the public and residents have actually been the strongest voice in calling for and bringing about change.
Thank you so much. When dealing with housing, one key component of individuals, especially in low-income housing, they're looking for safety and security for their children and their families. How are ways that you're able to help them with that as well as the housing?
Well, so I talked to you about the law that I put in place earlier. That law specifically covers the most high market areas of my district that are gentrifying in an effort to make sure that new housing built in those areas are affordable. I do believe that everybody, whether you're low income or whether you have a lot of money, you want to live in a desirable neighborhood. And I think that it's really important that no matter what income you're at, you can do that. So that's been a really big push of mine. And so I'm going to continue to try to support the creation or the preservation of affordable housing in neighborhoods of choice. And I also think that the city of Philadelphia has a unique opportunity to use the land that we own as a city to put that land towards the development of permanently affordable housing in neighborhoods of choice. Our city owns upwards of 40,000 parcels of vacant land that we, dispose of to for-profit developers and nonprofit developers for development opportunities and for other efforts like community gardens. I strongly believe that land should be primarily used for community benefit. I don't believe we should be selling that land to for-profit developers for market rate housing. The market is going to take care of itself. The city's charge and my charge as a policymaker is to make sure that vulnerable people are taken care of and have housing. And so that's an effort, that I continue to work in.
Okay. I know we have limited time, but I wanted to ask this question before you had to go. Was
Sure.
The homeless situation is starting to get cold. Wintertime is coming. How are y'all able to address the homelessness that's in Philadelphia?
So Philadelphia, we have a number of shelters that we try to direct people to. We also have outreach programs. So our outreach workers will go out and talk to people who are living on the street and try to convince them to come into a shelter. And once you're in a shelter, the city will also work with you to get into temporary and long-term housing. So that's a primary way in which we're addressing homelessness. And and I think it's good. And I'm the chair of the Housing and Homelessness Committee in City Council. So it's an effort that I'm supportive of. I'd like to see us evolve, though, into different ways of bringing people into housing. One thing I've noticed is that a lot of people will choose to stay on the streets because they don't like the shelters. They don't necessarily feel like the shelters are safe. They don't feel like the shelters allow them to live with dignity. And so they'll choose to be out on the street, even though it's cold, even though it can be dangerous. And so I think the city has to better respond to that and has to better understand why people don't want to live in congregate housing situations, and offer folks a different option that allows them to feel better, right, as a person, because I think everybody deserves dignified and safe housing options.
Thank you so much. Kay, you have anything else for the councilwoman?
Yeah, I just got one quick thing. How important is it to you to be a leader and on the forefront, and basically, like I call it, say, it's right there in the trenches when things erupt? Because most of the time people say, well, they talk the talk, but do we see them walking the walk? So I want to know, how important is it for you to be there and on the forefront and right there with the people when things go down?
It's very important to me, and I've tried to make that the a way that I go about my daily work, because I feel like I have to be with my constituents and understand what's going on and what's happening in neighborhoods to be able to truly represent them. And I'll just give you a few examples. After the uprisings, they happened after George Floyd. A lot of that was centered in West Philadelphia. I went out onto the 52nd Street corridor where at one point that day there was a riot happening. I went out and I mediated between protesters and the police. So I found myself in the middle of a group of young people who were refusing to go home until they could see some commitments of change from the Philadelphia Police Department, and armed police officers in riot gear. And I'm in the middle trying to bring calm and, trying to hear these young people out, but also to convince them to go to safety because there was so much chaos happening around us. But I felt it was important to be there, to hear them out, and to have a full conversation until they felt heard enough to leave that site. I've also gone, directly after shootings have happened, to the scenes to talk to people, to have an understanding of what people are feeling, what they want, what they need from the city of Philadelphia. I try to be present at protests and stand beside my constituents when there are things that they are passionate about and raising their voices about. I think that helps me to do my job better.
All right. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Now, Councilwoman, you said that you're up for re-election. So when is the re-election date? How can people get out there and vote and make sure that you're sitting in that seat again for another 4 years to help the community out there?
It will be in May of 2023. I don't know that an exact date has been announced yet, but we're approaching that season. And I just ask people to stay tuned. I hope that I'm doing work that people believe in, and believe in enough that they'll want me to stay here and do more work on behalf of our communities.
That's beautiful. Well, anything that we can do here on real2reel360 to help support your campaign and also your constituents that you serve in your community, just let us know. We'll be right there on the front line with you as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you all having me, and I've appreciated the conversation.
And we definitely have been excited about having you. Like I said, I've been in constant conversation with Miss Muhammad and her professionalism and
I'm gonna tell her. She'll like hearing that.
staying, staying to it. Like me and her is emailing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, trying to make sure that we set up a good time and make sure everything is right for you. And she definitely is on her job. So I want to say thank you, Miss Aaliyah Muhammad, for all the things that you've done to make this right here happen. Um, Today has been a very impactful day. This will be We'll be able to get you a copy of this for your campaign so you can have it for
Wonderful.
your own personal, and we'll be able to send it to either you or Miss Muhammad. Right.
Wonderful.
But right now, ladies and gentlemen, you have been graced and blessed with the councilwoman, Miss Jamie Gauthier of Philadelphia 3rd District.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care of yourself.
You too.
We'll be in touch to get you the show.
Okay, fantastic. Have a great day.
You too. Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a great, impactful, informative 30 minutes. 30 minutes of powerful information that if you're in the Philadelphia area, you're in the Pennsylvania area, trust and believe you have individuals who are willing to be on the front line with you. Also, this evening, we have the Vaccines, Viruses, and Us series today.
You don't want to miss that.
You don't want to miss that.
You don't want to miss that.
You don't want to miss that. Also, too, I want to say salute and peace to Mother Khadijah. She was down there in South Carolina this weekend with all that rain and everything else, and then she made it through. Just lights was only out for like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And just wanted to let you know, we love you. You're always, with us regardless of whatever's going on. And like I said, followers and listeners, make sure y'all tune in at 7 p.m. Hey, okay, you know what time it is.
Good. Let's get it.
Yo, ladies and gentlemen, we're starting to come to the end of the show. Right now, I want to take the time out and thank our guests for coming on. Also, too, we want to make sure that y'all listening and subscribing and tell a friend and keep sharing because we're going to keep bringing y'all the real content. You know what I mean? So, DJ KY, brother, take us up out of here, son. Hey.
I want to give a big shout out to the nation of God's earth, to all the human families on the planet Earth. I say peace. But to our subscribers, those who continue to watch and listen to the show each and every time we come on, I give a big shout out to love, peace, and happiness. To be the man, woman, and child of the you and I first. It's time for us to disperse. We bring the best, not the worst. We thank you once again for tuning in to the real 360. Bring a friend to hit that like and subscribe so we continue to grow to bring more knowledge and wisdom to you upon our show. You make it possible for us to do what we